Delighted to be joined today by Chris Moon. Chris, how are you, sir?
Absolutely living the dream, loving life, better than the alternative.
It's true. Most things are better than the alternative. Let me ask. I've worked with you for a long time. Like, that's me being polite about how long we've been in this. And your story is incredible. The way you speak, the way you speak and the breadth you speak about is amazing. How have you adapted your speaking over the years, and how have you come across new topics that you both want to speak about and you have the capacity to speak about?
There has been a huge adaptation. Initially, I was simply asked to tell my story,
Yes,
and that's all people wanted.
amazing story.
The process I went through to survive, having been blown up, losing my right arm and leg, doing my first marathon within a year of leaving hospital, becoming the world's first amputee ultra-distance runner. That was all they wanted. And then gradually I was asked to do workshops. But I realised that having studied human behaviour and worked a lot with psychologists, psychiatrists in the business schools, I could actually intellectualise the experiences in a way to deliver principles that everyone can use in their daily lives to be happier, to be healthier, to be better at what they do.
And how did you get? What was that process over the fact of kind of realising that I can tell my story, but really I want more than that?
Yeah, and what I've always wanted is to add as much value as I can to my audiences, because my audiences are the stars of my show. It's what I can do that will help them do what they do better, and recognise that we have a choice about the way we think, and that we can all do more than we think.
And how have your audiences changed?
I think they laugh a bit more. I feel much more. My humour has evolved enormously since we first met, because now it's 2023 and we need to be very sensitive to that. So some of the military robust humour has completely gone. I just saved that for the dinner table.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the key thing is that I'm also very privileged to work with some very smart people, psychologists, psychiatrists in the business schools. So you're always learning. And, recently I was interviewed by someone who studies survival, and he looked over the experience I've had and told me I should be dead about 15 times. So from that, I have worked out, be careful who you listen to.
Yes.
And also we never stop learning. And I guess the more people you talk to, the more you learn.
And kind of from your perspective, what do you feel are your challenges now? What do you feel kind of, whether for you or kind of for people around you, what are you going through?
As a result of being injured, I had some other challenges to my health, which I've overcome. And I had to work very hard to do that. And I guess nothing in life works unless we do. So the challenges, I guess, are I haven't gone the celebrity route. I didn't want to. I would much rather be doing what I do, which is meeting and talking to live audiences. That is what I love. And so I don't really have any desire to do TV. I guess the challenge that comes out of that is that you're not as well known.
Yeah.
So, you guys have to work harder to sell me.
Yeah. And how do you, kind of when you go on stage, how much kind of, I appreciate your hand, but how much you have to justify yourself being up on stage more than if you had that celebrity profile?
I don't, because I'm very confident speaking to any audience. I never get nervous because, they're not shooting at you. And
First person, yes.
Yeah, and I have been to some really unusual places, and I've run some tough races.
Yeah.
And I have a lot that I really want to share, because I have learned so much the hard way. And what's useful about the experiences I have on the balance of life and death and on the limit of human endurance is that there is absolute clarity. It removes any pretense we have as human beings. It gets rid of the white noise, and you're left with principles that people can use and apply that resonate with them. And wisdom is timeless. So I think as the years have progressed, I find it much easier to connect with people who originally weren't necessarily my tribe. So I come from a farming background, military. Some people also look at you in a certain way, but I love talking to people. I love hearing other people's views. And actually, at the end of the day, one of the most important things for everyone is how they can earn a living.
So let me ask, when you're speaking to audience, what reaction are you looking at, what questions you get asked where you're like, these people are actually engaged with the whole thing. And I think just because I'm interested, give me examples on the weirdest and most wonderful questions you get asked.
Um, the weirdest one was at the end of a speech to a very high class cruising audience. A lady, rather elderly lady, put her hand up and said, "Excuse me, young man, do you believe in ghosts? I know you've nearly died many times. The Khmer Rouge threatened to execute you 7 times. And you yourself died and were revived. Do you believe in ghosts?" And I said, "Yes, madam." And she said, "Did you know you can have sex with a ghost?" I said, "No." And I think we need to move this on. So I just said to the audience, "Is there anyone here who's had sex with a ghost?"
Yeah.
And this bloke at the back put his hand up. Ex-military guy. I chatted to him in the bar in his 80s, Scots Guards. And he said, "Yes, I have." So he comes, I said, "Sir, will you come down the front and tell us all about it?" And he said, "This is amazing. You're the first person I've ever met who's had sex with a ghost.
Yeah.
Tell us about it." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm terribly sorry. I thought you said goat."
Shut up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like, where did you go with that? You're like, okay, that is usher you off now.
No, I just couldn't say anything. I mean, obviously he was joking.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I think that's probably the weirdest one. The most commonly one I get asked is, why do I use something that looks so old-fashioned?
Mm.
And the reason I use this prothesis is because it is the most functional.
Okay.
So as you know, I've got a little small holding and I do all my own tree work. This is the only prothesis you can safely use hand tools and a chainsaw with. Imagine how embarrassing it would be if I turned up and said, "Look, I've cut some more bits off myself."
Yes.
So I talk a lot about health and safety behaviours, and I am much safer now with a chainsaw because I am just so absolutely careful. The electrical hands
Yes.
look good,
Yeah.
but they're not as functional. And I can't pretend that I haven't lost my arm and leg. And I accept it, and I want something that's as functional as possible, which is why I use this. But at the same time, for different people, it's different. And I know when the first electrical hands were brought in that looked like a hand,
Yes.
I knew the consultant who did the first trials, and he said that there were 3 questions at the end of the survey. How functional was it in comparison to a split hook?
Mm.
And the answer was, it's okay, but probably 80% as functional. Then the next question was, would you like to keep this prothesis? Yes or no? And then the next question was, genius. If so, why? And the tone of the answers was pretty similar, because for the first time I feel part of the human race. So it is different for different people.
And kind of reactions you get from people kind of like, and especially kind of other people who've got prosthetic arms. Is it kind of, are they amazed that you've used?
There are some who don't use prothesis at all. It's because they don't want to be encumbered by it. Quite often, people who may have a congenital lower arm missing.
Yes.
Some people prefer using the electrical hands.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think people recognise it's a matter of choice. Sometimes people stare. I think if you're comfortable with it, they don't stare.
Okay.
But I think if you are uncomfortable with it, then they will stare because they'll see that you're not comfortable. But it's operated by a strap around the left shoulder.
Show me how it works.
If you can see that, as I extend it, the strap here pulls the lever back and the elastic band to close it. If you'd like to help me demonstrate, pop a testicle in.
No, thank you. That's a very kind offer, but so I'll say no, thank you.
Okay. So, I think questions are great. One of the most commonly asked questions also is, what are my kids? I've been blessed with 3 fabulous teenage children who speak to me if I pay them.
Yes.
And these, my kids, they said, what's your kid's reaction to what you've done? And it was really interesting. I was chatting to my daughter the other night. She said, well, the whole family's really proud of you, Dad, for going out and doing what you believed in and risking your life and losing your limbs and nearly dying so many times for something you passionately believed was right. Mm. But frankly, we wish you were an arms dealer and made more money. I'm hoping she was joking.
You're never too sure. Chris, lovely speaking on that note. I think that's a good place to say thank you so much for your time. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, thank you.